Hello to my freedom-loving patriots. Hope you guys are having a fantastic night. If you wouldn't mind, please like, comment, subscribe. Today we are reacting to Neil Cavuto. He actually had a clip last Sunday on Fox News. Not a huge fan of him because he tends to lean left. But you know what? If I see someone fact check someone that's lying on this administration, I am going to show you guys. Today we are reacting to him interviewing Jared Berstein, and his position is White House Council of Economic Advisors chairman. So he is really close and in the air of Joe Biden personally. And he's going to lie and get fact checked live on television. You guys are going to find this hilarious just like I did. Like, comment, subscribe. Let's get it started, y'all.
Chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, Jared Berstein. You know, Jared, I understand your frustration sometimes when you look at the data and Americans don't buy the data, but they really don't buy the president telling them that they're essentially wrong. It's not that bad. So how do you navigate that?
Well, that's not at all what the president tells them. And in fact, yesterday, if you look at his statement, which is on the White House website, on the inflation report, we got a very favorable report from the perspective of the markets today, as you have been reporting correctly. But he pointed out, I think one of his first sentences is, we know families are still struggling with prices that are too high. I mean, this is practically a quote from his statement yesterday. Never will this president blow off the struggles that families like the one he grew up in are going through. Instead,
that's a lie, because Biden actually does lie on a daily basis. Every time he talks, he says, wages are going up faster than prices are going down. Now we have, yes, wages going up, even in California, just a couple dollars, but everything is skyrocketing while stores are closing down because of mass theft. So we're getting screwed with high prices while we're getting the food taken right out underneath from us because we can't keep our stores protected.
Take action to help them through cutting costs, prescription drug, clean energy, housing, childcare, junk fees, actively working to lower costs in those areas. So not at all dismissive of America's concerns in that regard, Neil.
All right, well, something like this.
Yeah, instead, also, I forgot to mention, Joe Biden is blaming the industries, the food industries, saying that they're charging more for less food, or like, let's say you buy a candy bar, they're giving you a third size less of the usual candy bar because these companies are selfish and they are big business and they are just trying to make a profit, when in reality, inflation is high. They need to charge more to make those profits because our government is doing record spending every year the past few years. And I mean, it's insane, the spending that we're doing. We're sending billions upon billions to other countries to prolong this war while we have issues at home. I mean, basic Americans right now can't afford to live. Even if you're making $100+ grand a year, they're still struggling. And this administration, this economy just is not good right now. And they're going to keep on trying to lie about it and say it's blossoming, it's amazing right now, when we all know what we see.
On that, but I do want to get behind why the president keeps claiming this. This is what talking about inflation. Take a look.
We have dramatically reduced inflation from 9% down to close to 3%. We're in a situation where we're better situated than we were when we took office. It was 9% when I came to office, 9%. But look, people have a right to be concerned. I think inflation has gone slightly up. It was at 9% when I came in, and it's now down around 3%.
Jared, why does he keep saying that? You're his top you're the head of the Council of Economic Advisors. Do you ever whisper in his ear, Mr. President, just to be technical about it, it wasn't 9% when you assumed office, it was 1.4%.
Yep. I believe it was 1.4 to 1.9%. It was under 2% when Trump got out of office. So that him just touting that is another lie. But I mean, what do we expect? He's never told the truth, and he never gets fact checked on his lies unless it's Fox News. And even them alone don't really fact checked as much as they should, because we need to be pushing this administration just like they pushed the Trump administration. The only difference is one administration is actually telling the truth and trying to help the American people, and the other administration, Biden that is, loves to gaslight and lie about everything to the American people. People aren't stupid.
It got as high as 9% in 2022. You brought it down from that, but it was never, ever, ever 9% when you came into office. So why does he keep saying it?
Well, first of all, let me point out.
How do you take 20,000 children in the middle of New York City without anybody seeing?
That in that very quote you played, the president talked about how concerned he was for households struggling with prices that he consistently
That's not what I asked you. That's not what I asked you.
So
why does he keep misrepresenting this?
He's making the point that the factors that caused inflation to climb to 9% were in place when he took office.
No,
I think
that's
it was
not what he said. He said it was at 9%. It would eventually get to 9% a little over a year after that. But the fact of the matter is it wasn't 9%. So if I can't trust him quoting data in real time, why should I believe what he's talking about now?
So the annual growth in core inflation in the second quarter of 20.
The fact is you shouldn't. And that's a good point. If he's lying about this, why should I believe him on anything else he says? You shouldn't. Just look at his past. He was a plagiarist his whole career. He's lied about everything when it comes to a career. And I believe recently he even said that his brother was eaten by cannibals, which was fact-checked and another lie, because all he does is lie. Because he's given these talk sheets of what to say every day by this man probably being one of the top advisors closest to the president. And it's a joke.
One was, in fact, about 9%. And his point about inflation down 60% off its peak is very much the case. So
no, it wasn't. It was not at that. So you're almost as bad as he is. Why can't you just say it was high? It got as high as 9%. You'd be accurate in saying that. And we have now brought it down and we're struggling in around the 3% area, but it's better than it was. But instead, to hang it on his predecessor that you inherited something that was through the roof when we were in the middle of COVID, it just seems to the American people, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you're lying. Neil. You're just lying.
Well, hold on. I hear you.
I love that. I love that. And that's very rare that we see someone like that get called out live on air that they're lying. And this is why we need, even though it won't happen, Biden or some of these cabinet members to come onto these type of platforms or like Fox or not leftist to ask these questions. But we know they won't, because every time they do, and Neil Cavuto is a Democrat, by the way, he is a Trump hater. But when they come on these shows, they actually get asked the tough questions. They actually get challenged because they're used to going on shows like MSNBC where they just spout some nonsense because they think you're stupid. They think you're too stupid to see what prices are right now, to see how people are struggling. So they gaslight you.
The president was making the point that I think is unequivocally true. The factors that took inflation to 9% were in place when he took office.
That is not what he said, Jared. And you're a very smart guy with this stuff.
They blame Trump as usual.
A good friend of yours obviously thinks the world of you. Many others do as well. You could have just told him, Chief, I got to tell you, Mr. President, whatever you say, you might even call him Joe. That's how close you are. And say, sir, it was not 9%. Stop it with the 9%, because the more you say that, the more people don't believe what you're saying.
Look, I think what the American people care most about is the fact that inflation.
The American people care about truth, Jared.
Hold on, Neil, this only works if you let me talk, okay?
You haven't answered my question. I've asked it 5 times, five ways.
The president was making the point that the factors that caused inflation were in place when he took office, and that's unequivocally true.
Right.
I take your point,
so it's all
and we can go on all day back.
So inflation was at 1.9% or 1.4% when Trump left and Biden got in, but because of Trump's policies, that's the reason why it rose to 9%. That makes no sense. So it's 1.4 when Trump left. But because of his policies, not Biden's, while he's president, it's Trump's fault why it rose to 9%. This is just ridiculous. And I mean, you don't even have to have basic knowledge or basic schooling, nothing, to just connect the dots and see what he made or what he just said makes absolutely no sense. And he keeps on deflecting because Neil's doing a great job calling him out on it. Why aren't you answering the question? That's just not true. You're not saying proper data.
Back and forth on this. I think what matters today is, are we making progress on lowering costs as well as lowering inflation? You know, they're not the same thing. Lowering both inflation and costs on behalf of the American people. I think we saw a great CPI report yesterday in that regard, but that's just one data point. No victory laps, no getting too far over the skis there. So you think the trend is your friend, and other economists agree with you that it looks like it could be, and the Federal Reserve might have some flexibility to cut rates. Correct. I had a guest on, you might have heard earlier, Jared, who was saying that would be a mistake. It would be a little too soon to start cutting rates. How do you feel about that? I'm not going to talk about Federal Reserve monetary policy in that regard. What I will say is that the Fed and Jerome Powell has consistently said he needs to have more faith in his forecast, and I suspect he's not the only one.
He's done a
I
good
think
job
a report
so
like
far,
yesterday's
not.
on the CPA is a data point that helps in that regard, but we'll have to listen to the Fed on that point.
So let me ask you about some of these, and they could be welcome developments. The markets certainly like it, to your point, because a slowdown is better than things heating up. We've seen in the retail inflation report, we've seen in retail sales, we've seen it in job gains slowing off what was a blistering pace. We've also seen it.
Let's also be clear on that. This administration's been touting job numbers for quite some time now, especially when it comes to unemployment. But let's recall where these jobs have come from. It's people returning to work. A lot of people were out due to the pandemic and still didn't return up until recently. So I'd say thousands upon of these jobs that they're taking credit for creating, which they're not, are really just people returning back to work. It's really that simple.
Factory output, which is pretty flat right now. Are you worried now? This sounds like a 180, that we could be looking at stagflation here, that things are slowing down, prices are still high. Are you worried about that?
Right before election time.
The question to a chair of the CEA is, are you worried about something? I worry about everything. There's a banana peel everywhere you step.
Yeah.
Stagflation is very low on my list for the following reason. First of all, you know that the labor market has been consistently tight with unemployment below 4% for well over 2 years. That's helping to generate real wage gains. And by the way, all the disinflation we've had is really important in that regard. So we now have year-over-year wage growth for middle wage workers for 14 months in a row. Now that's the kind.
So this dude's saying for the past 14 months, you're seeing more buck in your dollar while prices are going down. Please tell me in the comments if that's true. If you guys see that you have more money in your pocket while stuff's going down. I only see prices going up while less product is available. That's what I see. Very limited product available, high price.
Of tailwind from the job market to help support consumer spending, 70% of our economy, and it's been just a very positive perpetual motion machine in terms of growth rates. Look, GDP
but
continues.
it hasn't been a perpetual machine, right? I mean, rent growth right now it is outstripping job surges in most of the U.S. metro areas, right? So there is a flip side.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure what point you're making there. I mean, I think the key point
is
there
that the
is
cost of the American people, what they're enduring, isn't keeping up, is exceeding what they're earning. You're right; their earnings are going up. They are experiencing these gains, but in real terms, they are not.
So we have a factual disagreement. True or false?
No, I didn't make up the fact that rent growth is outstripping wage gains in most of the U.S.
Let me ask you a question. I know you're supposed to ask me a question. I'm asking you a question. On a year-over-year basis, has wage growth been beating price growth?
No.
No,
it hasn't. Okay. So when I give you this, when I talk about rent growth and grocery and related.
Yeah, this is what happens when you don't get the softball questions like they usually do, where they go on MSNBC and they just flutter him with compliments and let him just lie without any rebuttal. And he's killing him in this debate, and I love it. I'm here for it.
Food costs that are exceeding wage gains. Are you saying I just made that up? That I'm reading from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Is that under your control too?
So on a year-over-year basis, wages of middle wage workers went up 0.6% over the past year. I'll put this on Twitter.
Yeah, but we're paying more for everything. So what does it matter?
And in fact, on a year-over-year basis, wages have been beating prices for, I believe, 14 months running. But I'll make sure that's right when I get back to my office. That's unequivocally true.
On the rent thing, and the fact that food costs, related costs, are exceeding the wage growth that Americans are saying. You're saying that is not happening, that Americans' wages are...
Wait. This goes back to what I've been saying this whole video. They tell you not to believe your lying eyes. They're saying everything's fine and dandy. Don't believe what you hear. Don't believe what you see. Don't believe what you're paying more for, because we're the government and we know better and we know more than you.
Wait, Americans, you're saying, I want to be clear, is exceeding whatever their costs are that they're enduring, because they would have something else to tell you.
I'm not making a claim here. This is just a factual point that wage growth on a yearly basis is beating price growth and has been for middle wage workers for 14 months in a row.
That's a lie.
Let's talk about groceries.
The core costs that Americans endure. You're saying, wait a minute, no, just to be clear,
I have another
you're
question
saying
for you.
that is not exceeding what they are making, because Americans are telling you otherwise.
I don't know how else to say what I've said.
Wait a minute, they have
clear.
stopped buying a number of items precisely because of that. You're saying,
So
it's not that bad. You almost sound like you're saying, let them eat cake. Here's the problem. They can't afford the cake.
I started this interview by quoting the president saying that we know families are struggling with high prices, and that's why our top priority is not just reducing inflation,
the administration dismisses it. Only lately has the president acknowledged that, there might be a price problem.
Let me ask you a question, very important question for you, okay? Here is grocery price inflation for the last 3 months. Grocery price inflation, 0%, 0%, negative 0.2%. That's the last 3 months of grocery price inflation. My question for you:
but those costs are still up.
That doesn't really make sense. Zero inflation, he's saying, but the prices are still up. So what does that even matter? That doesn't even make sense. This dude shouldn't even be managing a McDonald's, and nothing against McDonald's managers. I'm sure they're smart. You have to be a manager. So I'm going to take that back. He's just an idiot. And it's amazing a guy, he's probably just corrupt and sold his way to the top like most politicians did. But it's amazing. This is one of his top advisors when he doesn't know basics when it comes to the economy or data or what his government's doing to make our lives better on a daily basis. He's a propagandist.
Certainly have.
We've talked about this.
We've talked about the slowing price
trend. Have you done a story
trend
on the decline in grocery prices in the past 3 months?
You're talking about the rate of increase
negative
is
0.2.
No. You're talking about something over the last few months where the rate of increase has slowed. You're not talking about the food gains. You're not talking about the gas gains that are up double digit. So you're isolating a 3-month period where it held its own. Please get this. This is an important point. I don't mean to besmirch you, Jared.
I'm listening.
You've got to acknowledge that when you make a big deal of prices that stop surging or hold their own after they have gone up at a double-digit rate, and you crow about that as progress, hallelujah. But for people going to the grocery store and still experience prices that are now a lot higher than they used to be, you're saying, essentially, you're imagining it. They're not imagining it.
No, they're not imagining it at all. And that's why I started this interview.
Celebrate the last 3 months.
Please.
You're saying celebrate the last 3 months, right?
Now you have to listen to me.
Go ahead.
This is so embarrassing.
I started this interview by quoting the President of the United States saying, and I quote, "We know that families are still struggling with prices that are too high, and therefore our top agenda is to lower costs in the area of junk fees,
Why should I believe it? Why should I
healthcare."
believe it, Jared? If he's saying
Because
that,
it's on the record,
when he doesn't even accurately talk about what inflation was.
His point is he's lying about it. So if he's lying about it, how can we trust him? And he's like, well, you should just trust him. No, thanks. I don't trust anything that comes out of Biden's mouth.
So why should I believe what he says now when he doesn't even know what's been happening with inflation since he took office?
Look at what he's done on junk fees. Go put a microphone in somebody who's now paying $35 for insulin. Go put a microphone in somebody who is paying lower prescription drug costs because of legislation this president passed.
That's just one category.
Somebody who's benefited from getting rid of some of the airline junk
Why
fees.
Why don't you put a microphone on someone who's paying more for chutney, who's paying more for Italian sausage, who's paying more for cereal? The Italian sausage,
Neil. You're a news station.
But you're picking and choosing and cherry picking the data that supports your view that inflation is what.
How am I cherry picking the data? How am I started this interview talking about people struggling with prices that are too high. I then told you a fact that apparently you're not getting, which is that wages are beating prices on a yearly basis.
It's the president who's not getting the inflation thing, right? I mean, the president.
They think because they say that it's a fact or that it's a stat that people are going to buy it when this administration literally lies about everything. So if they lie about everything, why should we trust what they're saying now? You shouldn't. That makes you smart. It's called independent thinking, which a lot of people don't have the capability of doing these days, sadly. But people are developing those tendencies again. And it's nice to see the population waking up. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, subscribe. Have a good day, my freedomly loving patriots. Peace.